Hello everyone and welcome to Not Your Perfect Yogi channel. Today the topic that I chose is a bit more spiritual. It's also tied to Christmas. It's part of the Not Your Perfect Vlogmas, but it has to do maybe with a few elements. One has to do with weight loss. Weird, I know. The second one has to do with spirituality and finding your spirituality. And the third one has to do with reset. So resetting yourself. What could this topic be? Let's have a guess together. What do all these three things have in common? Well, for those of you that know a bit about traditional religions and so, you might know that before Christmas and before Easter, in most Christian traditions, but also other traditions to other points in time, have a period of fasting. Fasting for spiritual reasons, fasting in the sense of abstaining from something that we usually consume, and that kind of creates pleasure in the body and makes you feel satiated and so. And fasting in different religions, in different parts of the world, is interpreted different. It can come to different parts of the year, but it's usually tied to a spiritual meaning. It's usually tied to a certain holiday, a certain celebration, and it happens before you get to celebrate. You kind of do this cleanse, you kind of need to do this abstaining, you kind of need to do this reset, and this usually also results for many of us in in just resetting the body, not only the mind, so maybe some weight loss as well. In the meantime, fasting has become really popular, and also here on YouTube, and so also for a spiritual reason, but for weight loss itself. And it's a very modern tactic as well, for everyone that's looking to have like a spectacular change in the appearance, spectacular change in sometimes what they call manifestation, so what you attract to yourself, spectacular change in mental clarity, spectacular change in how you how you cure your body, in healing altogether. So there must be something here, guys. Putting it all together, putting together the ancient traditions with the new developments, with what certain doctors recommend, with what has been in modern day more or less tested through studies and through research as well, showing that actually the body benefits from a pause of food. That the body kind of naturally uses that time to heal itself, to take away the dead cells that are not good, through a process called autophagy, where proteins in the body that are not the healthiest get eaten out through eating out also the excess fat and visceral fat, and through just letting the body kind of regulate itself, regulate its hormone levels by itself, regulate the gut microbiome and all of this by itself. So there's numerous videos out there where you guys can research about it. You can research from a spiritual point of view, you can research from a medical point of view, and you can research also from a healing point of view, from a reset point of view. I can only share my own experience with it, and I can share that I've started exploring fasting as much as possible to a certain extent in the past years. I managed to do almost a 72-hour fast last year. Weirdly enough, November, December are the months where I kind of feel that I can do it. And November, December are the months that traditionally, at least in the region where I come from, you would need to fast before Christmas. And I find it I I found the results pretty spectacular. I found it hard to do. I'm gonna admit, hard to do in the beginning for a longer period of time. So what I've learned is that you need to train it and kind of just take it step by step. Start with I don't know, 12, 14, 16 hours, then maybe take it to a day when you can, and see how it goes from there. See if you can extend it from one day. But I just think that leaving those 16 hours, so intermittent fasting, already benefits the body so much more. Because if you think how we used to eat, food wasn't always accessible to to people. Like, people didn't have food overall excessive, easy to take from everywhere. So where there was feast and famine, and that's how the body kind of works. The body is not created necessarily to be always fed. And I think a lot of modern, and this is what studies would also show, a lot of modern day problems come from overfeeding ourselves, like putting too much into our bodies. And the body kind of needs to work that, transforms it into fat, but also transforms it into cells that reproduce themselves too fast. So a whole theory, but I'm not going to go into these specific topics. I'm just going to go into my experience. So I did the fasting up to 72 hours. In November now, I did 24 hours up to 48 hours. And sometimes only water, other times tea, water, coffee. I think it can vary. Of course, it's ideal to do only water, but what I've noticed is that the body kind of feels rejuvenated after you do it. So it's like you really push the reset button, and you're like, you know, like everything starts functioning better, and it's cleansed. So you feel that mental clarity that they are talking about, but you also feel that you are actually more stronger, you know, like more energy flowing through your body. Sometimes you find it hard to fall asleep just because of that, but in the end it's just like, you know, like when you take a cold shower to wake yourself up, and then you can relax back again. It just revigorates you. So I think if you do it for a shorter period of time, of course there are the long fasts, and so it's just like a revigoration of the body. It's like you just get things moving back the way they were supposed to move, and you just give the body a break to work on the digestion, to work on everything that it needs to regulate. On the other hand, I wanted to talk about the spiritual aspect. I feel that many times a lot of what we have in terms of spiritual connection has been covered by so much that's going on, around us, with us staring into a phone, into a TV, into a computer, us having the world really built out for us, and not having, you know, like the space to think outside of those constructions that we live in. But even more, us always being in a state of feeding ourselves, in a state of digesting something, in a state of the body being burdened by things coming in from the outside into our body. So I think probably that fasting period that most cultures have come to has to do with us needing to take a break to reconnect to our true essence, you know, like without things coming in towards us, to take that break, to kind of spread the antennas and feel outside of us, like feel without the clear senses of tasting and smelling, just like feel beyond that, get in contact with who we are at our core. Sadhguru tells us, asks this in one of his interviews, and he says, who are we actually? Because you're not the same person that you were when you were 1 month old. You're not the same person that you are when you were 10 years old. Nothing is the same. So your body is just made out of the food that you're putting in. So at some point, if you take a break from putting in food, even for a short restricted time, you kind of start to feel, okay, who am I? I'm actually not as separated or not as closed off as I thought. So there's something that I don't think I can talk in very much detail to you guys, but I fully understand that spirituality and fasting go hand in hand. And before a big holiday, taking those moments of restraining from food and restraining for things coming in is a good opportunity for us to connect to those around us and to connect to almighty power and to connect, just feel more ourselves, just connect with our essence and discover our true, you know, like our true heart, our true self beyond the daily routines, because we're more than our routines, we're more than what we eat, we are more than what we live in, we're more than the people we're surrounded with, we're all more. So if you have a thought about maybe fasting for a couple of hours extra a day, or maybe 1 day or 2, or just drinking juices or starting smaller, so I think these are all steps towards a bigger thing. I'm gonna talk about fasting then in other videos from health and wellness and weight loss perspective, but that's a different topic. But from a spiritual perspective, I just think that everything that we invented on this earth in terms of traditions around this time of the year had a purpose, and sometimes it's good to revisit it, and sometimes it's good to see just what happens if we do this fasting for a while. So I plan to do it also right before Christmas. I know it's a busy time and people are mostly going out, eating, drinking, Christmas parties and things like that. So the society is not meant for us to sustain this anymore. But if you get an extra 1 or 2 days before the holidays to try this out, I deeply recommend it. Otherwise, there's always January. But I think it makes more sense now in the preparation of a bigger celebration where we want to be more open to love, peace, and those around us. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. I think this was day 8, 9. I already lost track, but this is not your perfect Vlogmas. The light in me sees the light in you, and this is why I do these videos. If you have any topics, let me know what else you would like to discuss. And if not, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.